so should be ready to go.
Excellent. So we're moving back to item 8, community facilities update.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. John Fulsell here. With your permission, I'll introduce the item, and Paul will continue. So we have a PowerPoint presentation, essentially putting a bit of colour and life around the community facilities update report, which is item number 8 on the agenda. The purpose of the report is really to update this committee on community facilities, but more particularly the activity and sort of the building of social capital that occurs around this activity. This is the first report back to this committee on the portfolio, so we are very keen afterwards to get your feedback, as we want to make this a regular occurrence, and I will take on board your feedback to make any changes we need to next time. So essentially, I'm introducing the first slide. Community facilities. Council makes a substantial investment in these. We have about 91 active facilities at the moment, worth about $100 million. Council last year increased the maintenance vote and capital spend vote, so we're in a position to start keeping these facilities in a manner that befits their importance and on a sustainable benefit into the future. Really quickly, look, the heart of the beast, why council invests. The council invests, well, to provide local venues, hosting events, activities, classes, really to promote community network and reduce social isolation. We also provide venues so the community and the council, through boards and other organisations, can engage and increase participation in civic life. We aim to provide facilities to build community resilience, social capital, increase community capacity, particularly to support responses to major stresses such as climate change, terror, and, like more recently, the effects of COVID-19. We provide to support a network of volunteers, opportunities for community partnerships regarding the provision and activation and operation of facilities. So we're building strong communities by energising and supporting groups. Lastly, but not leastly, the provision of facilities and the community development services that go around them, that accompany them, provide a celebration of local identity and diversity, providing venues for events, arts, culture, heritage, sport and recreation. I think the why we provide these is always the most important question. The reason I've detailed this is over the next few slides, Paul and Sylvia will break down areas of each of those whys to provide a little bit more colour and detail. And if we could have questions at the end, that would be really helpful. So Paul, over to you.
Thanks very much, John. My apologies for my delay. I was at my desk and then quickly ran down, but obviously 10 seconds too late. I'll actually hand it over to Sylvia to do the first 5 slides, and then she'll hand it back to me because this is the technical information which Sylvia has more information on. So, Sylvia, your hands.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Go to the next slide, thank you. This slide identifies Council's community facilities that we're referring to today. Approximately 3/4 of these are operated and managed by not-for-profit and volunteer organisations. The remainder are council operated and often referred to as venues for hire. The next couple of slides will then relate to these venues for hire. Can I have the next slide, please? In the report, we included the table at the top of the slide that shows the fluctuation we've had in bookings in the recent and current year. 2019, 2020 and 2021-22 have been affected by the COVID protection through temporary closures and restrictions. chart at the bottom left shows the proportion of regular and casual hirers, with the blue signifying the majority being our regular hirers. Again, the proportion of regular hirers has dropped in recent years, and this is a reflection of the impact the pandemic has had on regular classes and activities in our community. The bottom right chart shows the utilisation of our venues for hire over the current financial year. April to June months represent the confirmed bookings that we have in our system at the moment, with the expectation that this will increase once COVID restrictions are lifted. Can I have the next slide, please? This slide is a snapshot of the draft dashboard that staff have been developing for community board use. We introduced this to the Waimaari Spread and Catchment Community Board earlier this week with positive feedback received. The dashboard allows community boards to see better how the council venues for hire are used in their board areas, including the number of bookings, weekday and weekend usage, regular and casual bookings, and the types of activities and bookings that occur in their area. Next slide, please. When we were developing the Community Facilities Network Plan, we showed a lot of static maps identifying the council and non-council facilities in the area, as that was a key principle of the network plan, that it wasn't just about council facilities. And at that time, we recognised that we couldn't work with static maps going forward, and we developed this interactive map with the Smart Cities team in council. So this map is currently available on the council website, and you can put in an address at the top, which will then focus in on a particular area of Christchurch or Banks Peninsula. You can also use the filters to look at specific areas. And then if you click on one of the flags, you'll get the box that appears on the right-hand side, which gives you the opportunity to click through to the website for that page or to find out more additional information. And we think this is a good opportunity to share what we know about community facilities in Christchurch and Banks Peninsula. Next slide, please.
Thanks very much, Sylvia.
Handing over to Paul.
I'll take over from there. So this is Wilston Community Centre. So it's on the park at Ferry Road, right next to the school Te Waka. And we were approached by the school post the winding up of the previous community group that was managing this particular facility on council's behalf. Essentially, the group wound up in the start of this year, unfortunately, but through that, there's been an opportunity for the school board of trustees to approach council to say, hey, look, we used this building under the previous organisation. We'd like to continue to use this building, but also make it available for the wider community. So those are some of the programs that they currently provide, and they've only had the keys for essentially 2 months. So they've been very, very busy activating the building, but also activating the community along with it. And so we're presenting to the community board this afternoon in relation to this particular building. So that's a really good opportunity to, as John alluded to, understand the best way these facilities can be activated. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'd like to talk about community activation, which is obviously one of the key pieces we've got. Those particular 3 groups, the neighbourhood links, really supporting the local community, specifically through COVID, in relation to food parcel drops, but also just the wider use of that facility for people to be able to drop in. They've also had coffee mornings, sausage sizzles, and also free kai boxes, as I said, which is really, really good. Littleton Recreation Centre. So this has been taken over by the Littleton Recreation Centre Trust. Initially, it was set up with Project Littleton to activate the building. In relation to Nathan, the activation manager on site there, he now holds 13 regular programs and classes, including the youth program and working closely with the local Littleton youth group, but also other classes include yoga, tai chi, arts and crafts, ballet, martial arts, strength and balance for senior citizens, dance fitness, social squash, indoor football and basketball groups. So it shows the multitude of events that are happening in that particular facility, which is really, really good. These activities are supported by 15 volunteer hours per week. So again, there's a key commitment to the community through volunteers helping out to make that happen. The picture at the bottom of the screen is the Lansdowne Community Centre. It's the back wall, and there you can see where the mural was developed just recently by the local people working with the play centre and also the volunteers that run that centre. So they've done a great mural there, and in fact what they're now planning to do is work on the garden around that to incorporate the theme there. So again, really, really positive around what's happening with some of our community facilities that are being activated by the wider community. The next slide I'd like to point out is around rural community support. So here's 3 examples, all based in Banks Peninsula, and although that's not the only places we have rural communities, but here we've got 2, the Port Levy Community Hall, where they recently held a Summer with Your Neighbour event. There were 75 people attended, and they had a barbecue at the hall, and it was really, really well presented. And you can actually see, looking at that photo, what the building looks like inside. So again, the local community have done all of that work, and it does look great. Allendale Community Hall has been really, really busy over the last few months. So during the month of January, there was bookings daily, and they had obviously the maximum of 100 people attending each event. During February, Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays were booked. And the different types of events that were being held there is obviously weddings, birthday parties, community gatherings, and also community meetings. So again, really, really positive in that area. For the top right bubble that we've got there, Aruria Hall, which is on Marshlands Road, a bit off the beaten track, but again, shows the community partnership models really supporting this popular venue for rural locals and also the wider community as well. And this is based on the information we're getting from our community advisors recently, where we're asking what are these facilities used for. So again, we can provide that information to the committee so you can see value for money being spent on these particular groups. One of the things I'd like to cover off as well is our community advisors are continuing to work with the wider community. 2 more examples I've got, although nothing on there, includes the Gators working with the local community and local staff in relation to the High Community Centre and the wider Waikola Park opportunity, where there have been youth creating 1 or 2 bits of mischief, but again, bringing in the Gators will allow them to use the facility and keep an eye on that wider area as well. So that's a real positive. Also, Parklands Community Centre, where one of our community advisors is working very closely with a couple of local groups to get that building continued to be activated. Okay, may I have the next slide, please? Okay, this shows you Harewood Community Hall with the earthquake repairs we recently undertook. So, damaged slightly in the earthquake, but it was pre-earthquake 6% NBS, so we needed to spend some money. The community have been great, continuing to use that building during the time that the repairs hadn't been undertaken, but we finally had some funding and we were able to carry that out. So as you can see there, it's all back to normal, which is great. But a lot of work has been involved to get that building up to 67% MBS. Okay, and the next slide. So this is the Waimaari Road Community Centre refurbishment, recently completed in March of this year. And again, it shows picture on the left, there's picture on the right, what it looked like at the start and what it looks like now. And again, really presenting that building up to a fit for purpose standard where the community will return and enjoy the home comforts that they will continue to have. Also trying to provide a functional specification for our buildings where this will be the base design of what it looks like inside in relation to the colours, but also the materials used and also the equipment inside each of these buildings. Okay, and that's the final slide. Welcome for any questions.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to make my screen bigger so I can see more people and hands. So we've got Jimmy's the first hand up. So Jimmy, have you got questions? What we might do though is try and keep these questions to higher level questions about community facilities. So if you've got something that's more suitable for a community board meeting or community board question, if you could keep it for community boards, that'd be great.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. My question is, what is the council criteria? For instance, like the 21, based on staff presentation, 21 are council the operate those facility. But if back to the last year long-term plan, we did have 57 proposal disposing the properties. Because based on original officer thought, there's no use again, then have through the public consultation. However, because in that time, because there's a whole package together, it's not to separate by the different ward, different area, and also in that time the information is not sufficient. So actually, feedback from the community, from the individual resident, or even from community board, is they have no any idea. I just want to take example, just 151, 152, the Gilbert South, those multicultural center, because in that time, no any the person was aware they have a tenant, council have a tenant, but until the end of the last year, they just terminate those contract. So no sufficient information. They are not aware to feedback to the council. They need this kind of facility. So I just want to know. My question is how to improve those engagement and consultation with the community, particularly regarding to those specific each of the community facility. Give them aware the update status.
So perhaps Councillor Templeton, if I respond to that, given most of that seems to be not about community facilities, but about council's disposal process. So we got over 500 submissions on that particular part of the long-term plan. So it was one where certainly a proportion of the community did feel they had sufficient information. The information was also sent through to community boards, to all the runanga, to a lot of key stakeholders, including tenants in this environment. So there was some pretty good engagement, but we're happy to look at when we go through this process in future years, how we can continue to improve it. We never rest on the laurels in that matter. The crossover with the community facilities is that we look to drive any decisions based on your strategic plans and your direction that you've put in place. And the key document in this case for community facilities is the community facility network plan that John or Paul can much better and more eloquently describe than I can. But I can assure Councillor Chen that we will, as always, be looking to continuously improve our engagement on disposals of land.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne.
Thank you. I guess my interest is not so much in the concept of venues for hire. In fact, that's not a concept that we've really tried to commit or reorient this portfolio to. The idea of community activation of their own facilities is a priority, and there's still, a minority of those. The example that you gave in Littleton is tremendous, and you can see what sort of activation can occur at the local community level, rather than just booking it out to the, Destiny Church for a Sunday session. That's not what we build facilities for. We build facilities in order to support the community and its activation efforts. And so the Littleton was a fantastic example. So can you, and you described Nathan, I can't remember what role you said he had, but who is he employed by? Is he employed by the Littleton project? Is he supported by a funding contract from the council in that regard? And then my second question is, it's been 6 years since I opened the Aranui Waimaari Community Centre, and I acknowledge my conflict of interest as the very first patron of Actus, but it is a position that I hold, and it's relevant to the question that I'm asking today as the Mayor and as a member of this committee.
Thanks very much, Leanne. In relation to the first question, so Nathan Major is the activation manager for the Littleton Recreation Centre Trust. He was previously employed by Project Littleton when they initially took on the activation of that particular building. In relation to funding specifically for his role, at the moment, there is no funding requested via our people for that particular role. However, we are working closely with Littleton Recreation Centre Trust in relation to what costs they incur and how can we help to keep that building operating at the level that it currently is, but also trying to improve it as well.
So he's employed by them?
Yeah, he is employed directly by them.
Great. Yep, great.
Leanne, I can also add that the community board provide a small amount of funding to the centre on a regular basis, and our community development advisors, particularly Tricia Ventum, work with the trust and prepare sort of numerous funding applications and generally use our networks to leverage the type of opportunities Paul was describing.
Yeah, but you see, resourcing someone like that, to me, is an ideal way that you support a community in terms of its self-activation, self-agency, and developing true opportunities to do real things in real communities. That was a fantastic presentation about what has been able to be achieved there. And, our governance staff are amazing out in the communities, but they tend to link into support individuals like that. But if it's just about filling out applications for funding, then you'd really want to see this. I mean, to me, I'm driven by that model of sort of almost delegating the activation responsibilities to the area where they best belong, and that's within the community. The community activists, they know what their community wants. They know what their kids need to be encouraged to do, and those opportunities sit within our facilities. It's much better than a venue for hire. Just book it out to somebody who's just going to book it for 52 weeks of the year for the once a week event that they hold. But anyway, take me on to Littleton. Not Littleton, Aranui.
Okay, so just to let you know, Leanne and fellow councillors, I am meeting with Rachel and Mark on next week, Thursday. John and I met with them at the start of this year to progress the opportunity that has been sitting on the table for Actus to activate the building. Unfortunately, their capability has not been met in relation to, and I presume it's around COVID, but also the other challenges they've been facing over the last couple of years in relation to getting the right resourcing to take on this particular opportunity.
So we're not going to resource it ourselves.
Okay. Sorry about that, Leanne.
We're not going to resource it ourselves. I mean, we've been wanting this for 6 years.
Yeah, so resourcing has been provided to them. It's still sitting with them. But this is the piece that I'll be working with closely, Rachel and Mark, next week and over the coming months to get that progressed.
Look, I'm not going to do this online because in a public setting, because there is another aspect to this. I really want to see this resolved. I cannot believe that we're at 6 years and since it opened. So I'm going to inject myself into that conversation, if I may, to support them through that, and the local councillor might like to do the same.
Right. I was going to suggest that you took that offline, had a chat to Paul and John, and actually maybe went into that conversation. So that's a good way to move that one forward. And if you could let us know how that goes, that would be of interest to all of us. Melanie, then Yanni.
As Paul and Sylvia said, they came to board briefing for the Waihora Sprayed and Cashmere on Monday. And just sort of in response to some of Leanne's questions, have I got this right, that I understood that at least in our board area, there's really only one facility that is run by council and the rest are actually run by community groups, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and the other part to that was that about hiring out venues. I mean, there is desire by different groups in the community for that service, and that provides funding for community groups running facilities to actually, do all the things that require money, like small upgrade type things, and just general maintenance and looking after the building. Is that right?
So there is funding opportunities for groups to come to and apply for any funding that meets the criteria of those particular funding groups. So yes, there is funding available for groups to apply for, to undertake and support their activation of buildings.
Yes, but the fact that that some of the these venues are hired out to various groups provides an income that helps those groups running them to actually maintain them for community usage.
Yes. So in terms of any agreements that we've got in place or any partnership agreements we've got in place, whether it be a lease agreement, currently the tenant does receive all the revenue to help cover those operating costs that the council expects them to cover.
Yep. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Yanni.
Cool, g'day. Can you just talk me through the process? Like, I see that the Woolston community library, is it the community library or the community centre there is going out for requests? Yeah,
so it's the community library, so it's the community space at the new Woolston Community Library, right. Yanni. So, can you just talk through the process of who's made that decision and how the local community board's been involved? Okay, so the local staff have made that decision based on the lack of utilisation of that particular facility. We're still going through the process and it's still in its initial stages. We are going to present to your community board and I'll provide a briefing next month on the process that we have followed for that particular facility and the need to go out to the with an RFP. It has been highlighted in the network plan, obviously the steps that we will take, especially if a facility is underutilised, but also if there's an opportunity for a community group to show interest. And we've had some community groups that have shown an interest in that particular building and being able to activate it for the wider community.
Yanni, John
That
Philsell
looks
here.
like something you could raise this afternoon at the community board level, I think, because we've got the community board meeting.
Yep.
Yeah. Could I again emphasise, look, the process is underway. It's in its early stages. As Paul said, we're going to the board and we seek the board's guidance before proceeding. And ultimately, as said in the report, the ultimate decision lies with the board, and we wouldn't proceed without getting their blessing. Early stages.
I think
That's good to hear. Thanks for that.
Yeah, okay. Can I just ask another question, which is, in terms of our community facilities, obviously our service centres and boardrooms are a key component. What thought is going into the new community board structures around where service centres and boardrooms will be based?
Okay, so that's, probably out of the scope of this report. But John, if you want to give us an update of when we might get some information on that.
So the reason for raising it, just for example, like one of the things that we were told at our can I just finish? One of the things we were told previously is that staff are considering that Woolston space that we've just talked about being turned into the boardroom for the community board. So there is a crossover, that's all.
There's a vague crossover, but it's more about a governance thing. So can we just get John to give us an update on that?
Yeah, Sarah, the request permission to note that and come back with a thorough update on exactly where we are and how we aim to take the project through. Probably not prepared now in this meeting to do that.
Yeah, I think what we need is is some sort of guidance on what's going to happen with the transition from the organisation, because for 3 wards especially, that's going to be very new for them. And I think that having an outline of the plan for the transition for both the spaces that are being used, the staffing, and transitioning the various community groups across into those new community boards would be really useful. So if we could have a briefing on that sometime soon, that would be great.
Exactly also, what we had in mind.
Just to kind of like, even if you looked at like Actus and the Wainoni Community Centre, for example, that might be a good boardroom for the local community board. So there,
Yanni,
it's not just the Woolston crossover. Yeah.
We're going to get an update on it. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. But it needs to align to what we're doing with these facilities as well.
It does. Anne, you're next.
Kia ora. I've been muted. A couple of quick questions. Firstly, with the customer, review that you did, and did much come through about the difficulties in after hours type use of our facilities? I know that at Tahapua, that's a constant question or request I have is that people are finding it quite difficult to access the building after hours, and whether those sorts of issues are being addressed.
Yep, I can answer that, Anne. Thank you for that. There was your response that came through, did come through to me, and I did provide a response to a colleague, but it may not have been provided to you, so my apologies for that. In relation to our hirers and venues for hire, we've got 2 groups. We've got the regular hirers who have their access card or their key permanently with them while they've got bookings with council. If it's a casual user, then they need to pick up the card or the key to gain access during the service centre operating hours. So they are informed that at the time of booking, it's confirmed by email, and then they are sent a notification in the week leading up to their booking that they need to go and pick up the key from the service centre during the service centre operating hours. So obviously at Tahapua, we've got summer hours where it's longer and it's open later in the evening and also over the weekends. But then during the winter, it's only 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So the hirer is explained that. What we also have is that we encourage users to have an induction, especially for Tahapua, in relation to the security, in relation to the AV, and also the IT equipment that's provided. So we encourage that, and again, that's made through the service centre desk. So We are looking at improvements in relation to how we market our buildings better, but also what are the security systems we need to put in place so that people don't need to worry about a access card or a key, but in fact a code to enter through a door that's specific for their hire. So those are the sorts of things that we're also looking at progressing as well.
Thank you, Paul. That's really clear. The second question, just where does the discussion about responding to growth happen in terms of community facilities? Is that something that's monitored sort of ongoing, in an ongoing way?
So through the network plan, obviously there were some gaps that have been identified. We need to work better with staff internally in relation to planning and what's happening in the wider Christchurch area. So that's a piece of work that is certainly on our radar. We just need to progress that and then understand the steps that need to be taken to ensure that we're engaging with elected members as well.
That's encouraging. And just finally, a bouquet really. I mean, the gifting of the Old Hallsville Library has been has made a huge impact on the social infrastructure out in Hallsville. It's just going so well. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Right. Any further questions on the community facilities report? Yanni?
Yeah, thanks. I'm really happy to hear that you're looking at the key access. It's just, that's again another one of those issues that has been raised for a very long time. Do we have a sort of date by which we'll get a solution to people having to physically pick up keys from service desks?
So at the moment I'm trialling, predominantly because of COVID, at 4 of our sites. It will take money because it is a capital expense that I haven't planned money for. So I need to work through that, but I can provide elected members with an update once I've got more information as to A, cost, but also how we would roll that out with our facilities. I'd like to be able to do it as part of the capital renewals and replacements, but that's potentially too long, especially for our council managed ones, but also the community managed ones to undertake.
So the cost of putting like a smart lock on where people could just get a code, it would seem to save a lot of money in petrol, time. So that would be really cool. And the only other thing I had in relation to that was there was also, I think, a resolution somewhere that we wanted to look at Wi-Fi at our facilities, at our community facilities. Is there an ongoing program looking at that? And also solar was the other one. Okay, so in relation to Wi-Fi, I am again part of the capital renewals and replacements program. So for Waimaari Community Centre, we've installed Wi-Fi there. We are looking at rolling that out. Again, it costs money. So I have a limited budget in relation to capital, but that's where I am looking at proceeding with that. At the moment, any new builds, we are putting Wi-Fi in. However, for the retrospective fit out of Wi-Fi, it will take time and resource. Can we approach Enable to sponsor it? Yeah, we may. I'll talk to some people. Thank you.
Great. And now Phil's got a question.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, guys. This is real good. With regards to a proposed community building that the community board are actually looking at in Gilberthorpe's Road, have we given them any indication that perhaps they could go into the old Hornby Library? Because one day in the not too distant future, it'll be round at the new swimming pool facility, so it will be empty. Have you thought that could probably end up on your plate?
So I understand, and I know Bruce isn't on the phone, or on the call, but his staff are looking into that potential opportunity. So it's certainly front and centre with staff's minds at the moment. Don't know the outcome or the proposal, but yeah, certainly staff are aware of that.
Excellent, thank you.
That's great. Okay, and with no more hands up at this stage, I think we will move to the recommendation, which is to receive the report. So do I have a mover for that? Mike and Melanie for seconding. Okay, any debate? Oh, Andrew. Was that a question or debate?
No, this is debate.
Okay.
So thank you very much indeed. Thanks for the report. And in particular, thanks for drawing attention in the presentation to the success story of the activation of the Littleton Recreation Centre by the community trust that has obviously been set up for the purpose. So the way that the community now operates this facility really shows what can happen when we work with communities, when we trust communities, when we genuinely build capacity in communities, which then allows them to deliver activities in these facilities quite differently than council would do it themselves. Partnership with other groups, recruitment of volunteers, community connections, community activation are all very different and all land very differently when that's done by the community rather than for the community. The sense of ownership, the resulting uplift in interest, in participation is on a completely different level. Now, not all communities have got the capability or the capacity to do this. And where we don't, we need to realise and we need to understand that. But also we need to remember that we can help to build community capacity. So councillors that were around at the time might recall that we gave a grant to Project Littleton in the very early stages of this project so that they could build capacity within their own organisation. And it was exactly that allowed the conversations that led to the setup of the community trust and the activation that we see today happen. So after the earthquakes, we completed the repairs on the facility. The community was really frustrated that council had completed this building and there were no staff, there were no formal organised activities in there. Essentially, we finished a building and said to the community, you know, here's your finished building, what do you want to do with it? That led to frustration and disappointment, but it also led to some really good conversations within the community about what they wanted. So community conversations, blue sky thinking, that in turn led to conversations about what partnership between the community and council could look like, realising that there were some big differences in culture between the way a community group works and thinks and the way that a big organisation like council works and thinks. And there were some difficult conversations. There were times when it looked as if this project wasn't going to be able to work at all. But we've got what we've got today, what we've heard about this morning, a well-activated building, a community which has built capacity to activate that building beyond what people thought was even possible when this conversation started. But I come back to the capacity building piece and I relate that to the comments that were made about Aranui. If this could be done in Littleton, with assistance building capacity and getting resourcing in place, I'm sure that can be done in other parts of town and Aranui would be included in that. And I really look forward to seeing what we can achieve in Aranui, realising some of the difficulties we went through in Littleton, but realising we've really found success at the end of what at times was quite a difficult, but in the end successful journey.
Thank you very much. I might set my timer for Jimmy. So Jimmy, your debate, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the start the comprehensive report. This report is very good. Yeah, but because those community facility, you know, because so complicated. Because based on this report, we can see if 91 or 82 in those council community facility, 61 is a community operate, 21 is council operate, and we also have a kind of partnership. And also have kind of higher those the value to the community. And if we review further, you know, we have digital to kind of to hire this facility by the menu to hire this one, and also we have the expression of interest. This one of my view is a key is strengthen those engagement and also the consultation with the community. Because the council try to maximize this local value and also, you know, encourage more this facility have volunteers take a lead owned by and operated by the community. Then those consultation should be and engagement should be very, very crucial, etc. Particularly, I still would like to emphasize all those the proposal disposing those properties, because there's a bigger gap between the council the view and the community the view. So this one only through the strengthening of the engagement and the communication. Otherwise, this one is can can reduce, council the level of the service, and also probably create is more percentage of dissatisfied with council services. So this is my recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. And Melanie.
Thank you. This is just going to be short. Look, I think the thing that probably we haven't highlighted that was in the presentation is actually the community facilities map and how that's now interactive. And I know Sylvia presented it. I think that's game changing in terms of understanding what community facilities we have and thinking through to their websites. It's something that we've been wanting for the whole time I've been either on council or community board, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. And just to also highlight that it said in one of those earlier slides that basically 3/4 of our community facilities are managed or operated by our communities, and I do think community boards work with community groups and the individuals that put a lot of time into it very well, and I'd like to see obviously that continue, and I'm very grateful for the work that Paul and Sylvia have been doing in this area, because we've been needing it for years. So thank you very much.
It's great. Thanks, Melanie. And Leanne.
Sorry, I'll be really short as well. So I just want to kind of remind people that social capital is not built for communities. It can only be built by communities. And I'm kind of sick of central government sort of saying that they need to do things for the community. If we're going to face issues like climate change, if we're going to face issues like resilience to natural hazards, then we have to we have to support the building of resilience. Building social capital within communities is something that communities must do for themselves, and we need to support them. It might sound simple, but it's interesting when you read all of the literature about resilience. You know that it's not developing the plan, the disaster plan or the emergency plan or the response plan. It's not the plan that matters. It's the coming together to build the plan that matters. And that's because communities get to know each other, they get to understand their strengths, and they get to understand that you build on strengths in order to meet needs. You don't start with a deficit-based model. Asset-based community development, I've said it quite a few times, ABCD, it's easy to remember, and I'd like us to make sure that we're doing that with our community facilities, is enabling, supporting, facilitating, and building capacity, particularly in communities that often struggle more than others to find that capacity within. They've got the heart, but they haven't got the financial resources. So that's my plea.
It's great. Thank you, Leanne. Anyone else? No? In that case, I will put that. All in favour, please raise your thumbs. Any against? No? Okay, in that case, I declare that carried. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Paul, Sylvia and John, for the presentation. That was really good. And if anyone's got any feedback on that, could you please flick it through to Simone. Right, so now we move to the